Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Long and Winding Royal Road, our look back at the 90s era of All Japan Pro Wrestling, the greatest period of in-ring professional wrestling, in my opinion, in the history of the entire sport, industry, genre, whatever you want to call it. I don't judge. I think of it as a sport, especially when it comes from Japan. But this is episode 20. And as you know, we do biography episodes every fourth episode of this show. And so we've done Misawa, Kawada, Kobashi, and with episode 16, we finished up the four pillars with Akira Taue. So that brings us to episode 20. And who could we possibly talk about but the person that's considered the fifth pillar of the Royal Road era of All Japan Pro Wrestling, and that would be Jun Akiyama, the man known as Blue Thunder. I think he's kind of nicknamed Blue Thunder, like Kenta Kobashi's nickname was Orange Crush, and Kawada was, Dangerous K. Taue was Dynamic T. I think Misawa did have a nickname, but it's not really commonly used. I always forget what his nickname might have been, but maybe our guest today will help us talk about that. But joining me today is someone who I know is one of the biggest Jun Akiyama fans on the planet, and so I thought, who better to come out and talk about Jun Akiyama with me than my former co-host from Japanese Audio Wrestling, and that is JoJo Remy. JoJo, how are you?
I'm doing great, WH. How are you?
I'm good. I'm enjoying talking with you off the air. We were talking about maybe meeting up sometime in the coming year in the United States somewhere. We'll see where COVID is by that point. Hopefully we can make that happen. But I think just I'm overall pretty good. I was actually just really enjoying doing the research for this episode because I've always been a big fan of Jun Akiyama, like from the get-go when I started watching All Japan and getting tapes and actual tapes, like VHS tapes of this stuff from I'd say from 90, 97, 98 on. And so he's pretty much in the mix at that point. I'm like, this guy in the blue, he's pretty awesome. Who's this guy? And I'll talk a bit more about what appeals to me about him. But let's talk about you. What is your history of fan? Because I know you're a big fan of Jun Akiyama, and so talk to us about how you got into seeing him and what stands out about him for you.
Yeah, I mean, I got into All Japan. I was in ninth grade. Would have been 1999. So a little bit after you, but right, in the peak of the head drop era in All Japan, really. And obviously, the tapes I was watching weren't super contemporary. I wasn't getting the previous week's tapes yet. But yeah, I mean, obviously the first match I've talked about before I ever saw was a Misawa and Kobashi match, but then just kind of digging into more stuff really related to Akiyama. He was more he had more buzz at the time when I was then digging into the contemporary goings on in All Japan, right before the Noah split. Really sick moveset, obviously, playing virtual pro wrestling too with him is a delight with all the cool moves. I think the first match of his I saw probably would have been one of the Burning versus Untouchables tag matches. But then obviously I'm a big Noah fan too, so he was the flag bearer for Noah. A lot of the Noah versus New Japan stuff centered around him. So his All Japan run, I kind of got in at the very end of it, but for sure one of my favorite wrestlers ever. A real aggressive wrestler, a real fun wrestler to watch, and a really fun wrestler to follow throughout his career. Really, it's kind of mirrored my fandom. So yeah, I feel a really strong connection to him.
He's a great, what I call a prick wrestler, in the sense he's just an asshole to everyone he wrestles with. It doesn't matter if they're veterans or younger people or his contemporaries. If he's wrestling you, he's just gonna be really super prickish to you. He'll attack you if you're in a tag match with him, he'll attack you while you're on the apron. He'll knock you off the apron. He'll he just doesn't care. Like he's just goes there and he's out there to prove himself, especially if he's in there with, the four pillars, Misawa and Kobashi in particular. He's super aggressive. I love it when he's in Noah and he's just abusing like Makoto Hashi, Kenta, Naomichi Marufuji, sure. And he's kind of reminds me of like Junichiro Tenryu in that sense, and like kind of like surly early 90s Jumbo Tsuruta in a lot of ways. And I think I always like that. Like to me, he's very much up there. Like I think the best prick wrestler I've ever seen in my life is probably Shinjiro Otani. But like Jun Akiyama is definitely right within the conversation of being in that top mix of like great dickhead, mean bastard wrestlers that I do actually enjoy watching.
Yeah, and Akiyama has like an extra gear that I wouldn't necessarily say Otani has in terms of like aggression, right? Like Otani is known for like his passion and his like, cockiness and that sort of thing too. But I think Akiyama has this like extra killer mode basically, where he's really like trying to do harm to his opponent, which is oftentimes pretty entertaining.
Yeah, he does really add this kind of like element of like targeting a body part. Like if he like hurts your neck, he's just gonna go after that neck. Or if someone in a tag match gets, like a limb hurt, like an arm or a leg or something like that, he's just gonna go after it. And like one of my favorite things that he adopted in Noah was the guillotine chokehold that kind of really established him over like Misawa and Kobashi in the early shows of Noah. And we'll talk a bit about that more in depth later on. But I just like the way he cranked that on. It's beautiful. I was like, oh, he's actually choking these guys up, looks like. So it is something that is very appealing about him, is like his aggression and like how he's just vicious in the ring. But very nice man in person. I got to meet him once at an All Japan show before in I think 2018 or 2019 . And
pretty sure I took a picture of you.
I think you took the picture. I bought a T-shirt from him and speaking English a bit to him, and he was like, oh. He appreciated, like, he likes it when, I think he appreciates like when people who aren't Japanese come to the shows as well to like and buy merchandise directly from him. So that's nice. So it's one of my prized possessions. He autographed it for me, so I'm really happy about that T-shirt. But very nice man in person. So yeah, I can't say. Thankfully, I never got in the ring with him. He never abused me in the ring. So. But we'll talk about Jun Akiyama and we'll talk about other things we like about him, and we'll give some match recommendations. And basically, we're going to take a look at his entire career for the most part, focusing heavily on his early stuff in the first kind of 10 years of his career in All Japan, but also, and a significant part of his peak years were in Pro Wrestling Noah. So we'll be looking at that as well. And then his return to All Japan, and then subsequently like where he is right now, which is in, of all places, DDT. And I didn't necessarily see that coming, like, that he would end up there. I always thought if he's going to leave All Japan, he was going to go back to Pro Wrestling Noah. What did you think about that, JoJo?
Yeah, I mean, I think we got that news kind of like towards the end of 2019, was it, that like he was potentially going to be headed to WWE, right, to do some sort of like coaching gig, like presumably the gig that Hideki Suzuki ended up getting. I don't know. So my assumption is that All Japan was not doing well enough financially for him to hang around. I guess I don't remember if Cyber Agent had already purchased Noah at the time, but I think DDT made sense from a financial perspective for him, and I think he's really been a great addition to one of my favorite parts of DDT. I'm not a huge DDT fan, but he definitely makes it more enjoyable for me.
Well, we'll talk a bit about that again later on as we get into his career. But let's talk about Jun Akiyama. He was born October 9th, 1969 in Izumi City, which is located in the Osaka prefecture. He is listed as being 1.88 meters or 6 feet 2 inches. And as his weight is listed as being 110 kilograms or 240 pounds. It's funny though, JoJo, like we were talking about temperatures earlier, and I'm very much a metric person. So I use Celsius, and obviously you're in the United States and you use Fahrenheit, but like we in Canada we do tend to use like feet and pounds a lot more than we do like meters or kilograms for height and weight. And I think it has more to do with the fact that like, we do so much trading with the United States that it's easier just to keep those dimensions for like say shoes and other items that require like knowing the dimensions in terms of like, height and weight and stuff like that. But I do prefer myself. I do prefer using like feet, inches, pounds. I can visualize it a lot better than kilograms or meters, even though I did live in Japan for 10 years and it's all metric over there.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny obviously I'm much more comfortable with pounds and feet and inches and that sort of thing. But in terms of metric, I think I do understand it in the context of wrestling, particularly heavyweight and junior heavyweight weight classes, right? So 1.88 meters would, he still wrestles today, obviously, but, he was very tall he would be very tall if he were a wrestler debuting today. Let's put it that way. There's not that many 188 centimeter Japanese wrestlers with his type of profile that are debuting. And I mean, obviously wrestlers were a little bit taller back then, but it was, he's a big guy, definitely a big guy. You met him in person.
Yeah. I met him in person when he's older and like, not necessarily going to the gym as much, but he's still a very like just naturally big framed human being. So I can only imagine like how much bigger he was when he was like hitting the gym really hard in like the late 90s and in the early 2000s and things like that. But as a young child, he got into wrestling via his grandfather, who was a fan of All Japan Pro Wrestling. And when he said one of his earliest memories as a fan of wrestling was seeing Jumbo Tsuruta wrestle in the 70s. And I think that's kind of cool because like we'll talk a bit about the idea that when he debuted in All Japan after his training, he was very, very much compared to Jumbo Tsuruta.
Yeah, jumping knee, right? That's probably a big part of it. And the amateur background.
I just think just like his natural aptitude to wrestling, was
that too for sure.
Was something to that people were like, yeah, he's like, like Jumbo. When Jumbo came along, like he trained with like first like with Baba, and then he was sent to I think Amarillo, or he was sent to Texas to train with the Funk Brothers, and they just like he took to wrestling like a fish does to water, and same thing with like Jun Akiyama, which we'll talk about as well. But yeah, he it's always been like part of his life, wrestling as a fan, not so much as like I don't get the impression he was obsessed with wrestling. He just enjoyed it. He saw it and he was like, oh, that's fun. It never occurred to him to become a wrestler until later in his life, which we'll talk about. It's a very funny story about that. As a student in school, he was a very athletically inclined person. He was in junior high school. He was on the swimming team. And I actually read this very funny story that was translated from his biography on Japanese Wikipedia, where like before, like he didn't like the feel of water on his head. Like someone said he'd wear a bathing cap even when he was just washing his face or something like that. Until one day, I think one of his parents like just said, you're going to learn how to swim, and threw him into a pool. And then he just got over it. So to the point where like, oh, this is not so bad. So he joined the swimming team in junior high school. And then when he went to high school, apparently there wasn't that much activity for a swim team so he thought, oh, I'll get into freestyle amateur wrestling and do judo. So those were the sports teams he was involved with in high school. And then he moves to Senshu University in Tokyo. He was a member of the amateur wrestling team in university.
Yeah, a very prestigious wrestling team at that, right?
Oh yeah, so like the alumni of the Senshu University wrestling team includes Riki Choshu, Hiroshi Hase, and Manabu Nakanishi, and one more person was in there, like one of his contemporaries. Mm-hmm. I forget who it was.
It was Tsuyoshi Kosaka, who's a rings fighter.
Yeah, that's why I don't remember, because like he's more in the like the shoot style. but
Yep, for
he's
sure.
quite famous as an MMA fighter. But Nakanishi, oddly enough, was like his senpai in on the team, because when Akiyama was in his first year, Nakanishi would have been in his fourth year university and his fourth year on the team. And he said like Nakanishi was like a really kind senpai to him. Like he I think most senpais are like, always trying to push their kohais, their juniors. But he said I don't think he get the impression that he was ever like kind of like bullied or hazed by Nakanishi. He's very fond of him from those times, which is funny because like they would end up like, wrestling each other during these times that he would do interpromotional, like Noah versus New Japan stuff in the mid 2000s and stuff like that.
For sure. And I think teamed or tagged with maybe 6-man later, like, in the last 5 years or so, towards the end of their careers as well. As Akiyama was teaming a little bit with Nagata too.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk a bit about Nagata and Akiyama a little later on. But like, I think you have the connection that Akiyama and Nakanishi had from their university days. But I think it's just strengthened that because of Akiyama's very interesting relationship and friendship with Yuji Nagata, which we'll talk a little bit later on. If I don't get to it, remind me to talk about JoJo, okay?
We'll do. One other thing we didn't mention. Shares a birthday with John Lennon.
Does he?
He does. So obviously holds another special place in my heart because of that.
There you go. JoJo being a massive Beatles fan. And also a Jun Akiyama fan, so it's what a wonderful coincidence that they share the same birth date.
And I think actually Nakanishi was his roommate his freshman year. So think about that, right? Like senpai, captain of the team, you're a freshman, and you're sharing a room with this guy, and you still have nothing but good things to say about him. It speaks volumes about the kind of guy that Nakanishi is.
I get the feeling I've always got the feeling that Nakanishi is probably a pretty nice guy. He never struck me as like a prick wrestler when he was wrestling. He's just like let's be honest. He's not that great, to be honest. He's okay. He's at his best. He's okay, but never an asshole like Akiyama or Shinjiro Otani in the ring, or Kenta. Kenta's another great example of a prick wrestler that I love to watch. So in his first year, he was the All Japan student champion for amateur wrestling in university. And then by the time he gets into his fourth year, he becomes the captain of the team. So being roommates with Nakanishi was a great learning experience for him.
Yeah, it rubbed off on him, and he ended up leading the team as well. So I think, there's a lot to be said for just like how many wrestlers around that time were becoming professional wrestlers too. I think he competed against Tamon Honda, who obviously he ended up wrestling with a lot in All Japan and Noah too. But yeah, he was the captain of a very competitive team, which says a lot about his athletic ability.
And it was during this time where he's showing a lot of success as an amateur wrestler that he was scouted by All Japan Pro Wrestling in a very interesting way. And so from my research, a man by the name of Kenshiro Matsunami, who was the head coach of the wrestling club at Senshu University, told Akiyama one day, "Hey, wear a suit and come to the Capital Tokyo Hotel in Asakusa." And he didn't know why. So he puts on a suit, he goes to this hotel, and what he didn't know was waiting to meet him at the hotel was one Giant Baba and his wife, Motoko Baba, who were there because they were interested in recruiting him for All Japan for wrestling. And that's very smart of Baba to put make friends and put on the payroll the coach of the wrestling team at this very prestigious university.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think it has something to do with the fact that Choshu and Hase went there for sure. But yeah, imagine that, walking into Tokyo Hotel and just seeing Baba sitting there, probably like, if not smoking a cigar, definitely holding one, which obviously Akiyama likes to partake in too these days. But yeah, probably quite the sight to see. And the craziest thing to me is that, like, I've been to that freaking hotel. Like, Imagine if I were just in Japan, 20 years earlier than I was, I could have actually run into that kind of stuff happening in real time.
It would have been a very surreal scene for
For
sure, for
sure.
sure. So when Riki Choshu, speaking of Riki Choshu, when he heard that All Japan had scouted Akiyama, he asked Hiroshi Hase, "Hey, why didn't you try to recruit this guy for New Japan?" And so it's just like, I think Hase's response was like, "Hey, like Baba's got the connections over there, man, not us. What do you want me to do?" So, which is funny because Hase would eventually, go join All Japan on a part-time basis after he leaves New
That's
Japan.
right. Had a big match with Akiyama at the Tokyo Dome.
He did, yes. So so he gets scouted. He's still not sure about whether he wants to go into pro wrestling or not as a full-time job because he's still in university. But he has this epiphany kind of when he's on a bus one night, like in going through Tokyo, and on this bus with him is this drunk salaryman who is like holding on to one of the bus straps that you use, like, to keep your balance when you're standing on a bus. And this guy's holding on to that. He's drunk. He's asleep. And he's drooling. And Akiyama just looks at this guy and thinks, I do not want to end up like that. I don't want my life to be that. So that's what prompts him to go into professional wrestling. And to be honest, JoJo, like I have worked with, as an English teacher, I've worked with many, salarymen as my students, and I've ridden the trains at night many times in Japan, whether in Tokyo, Osaka, or wherever. And I have seen similar situations, like, sites like that. And I was just thinking, man, I am lucky. I have never had to have that kind of scheduled or have that kind of pressure on my life where I want to get drunk right after work and then just go home drunk like that. And so, I can't blame Akiyama for not wanting that because it would be so prevalent, especially in the, in the time he's growing up in the 70s and 80s.
For sure. And that, that culture still exists for sure. I'll never forget. I once saw a guy in a suit, definitely, didn't make the bus, was probably forced to kind of, wander about all night. Anyway, he was wearing a suit, sitting on the sidewalk. His knees in his suit were both like blown out because he probably fell. And he just like was sleeping with his head in his hands. And I was like, yeah, it's a rough life, working hard, going out to drink every night with your coworkers or your boss, and sometimes not even making it home.
Yeah, I'm so thankful. That was never my life in Japan. But so Akiyama goes into the All Japan dojo. He's trained by Giant Baba, Kenta Kobashi, and Jumbo Tsuruta, three men who would be very important to his life, especially Kobashi. They are pretty much tied at the hip throughout most of Akiyama's career. And there's a funny story, like, he starts training in the dojo and Giant Baba runs into him and Akiyama likes to wear his shirts untucked. Whereas Giant Baba comes from an era, where, you tuck your shirt into the hem of your pants, JoJo. And so he said to him, hey, you should tuck in your shirt into your pants. And Akiyama did it. But then he said, you know what? I don't like this. It looks better. This looks fine. It's more comfortable. And then Baba was just like, you know what? You got the strength of your convictions. You can do that. But this is something that was very, popular with a lot of All Japan wrestlers of that era. And then later on, even into the 2000s, these kind of traditions are like kind of passed down to like the 2000s era as well, where like if you see a lot of casual photos of the guys in Noah, the young guys in Noah, a lot of them will be wearing their shirts tucked into the hem of their shirts, except maybe like more casual photos. But I think that's kind of a cool thing. It's like when you run the ropes in All Japan, if you're an All Japan dojo guy or a Noah dojo guy, you hit the ropes with your side rather than your back.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff was passed down by Baba, I'm assuming. I wonder how much of it was influenced by just, his unique size, like how they used to wear their tights higher up on their waist, covering their belly button or whatever. But for sure, you can tell that Baba played a big role in developing the person that Akiyama became, as a wrestler and a man for sure.
Baba also told him, because he wanted to push him as like a super baby face in the company. Like I do get the feeling like he is being groomed to be like the next guy after Misawa as the ace of the company. But he told him, don't do things like, like when your opponent's on the ground, don't stop on them. But like Akiyama was like, no, I like that to do that. So he did that as well. So, obviously, Akiyama respected Baba. Baba was his trainer, his boss, and like he was a legend, of course, as well. But he's just Akiyama was like, I think he got the sense like, Baba likes me enough where I can just get away with small things like not tucking my shirt into my pants and stomping people while they're on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, I think it speaks about how unique of a prospect and like kind of a supernova, as they say, Akiyama was, that Baba gave him a little bit of leeway. Because Masao Inoue didn't get that same type of wiggle room, though he did debut around the same time.
Oh, what Misawa? No, like Misawa's as Akiyama.
Misao Inoue, the dude who does the Argentine backbreaker.
One of the worst wrestlers ever.
Exactly. But debuted around the same time as Akiyama, right?
So. Yeah, but Akiyama, like you can tell probably like this guy's got something. Masao Inoue is like, yeah, he's mid-carder for life. Like we don't have to give.
Yeah, that's my point, right? It was clear that Akiyama was headed for the main event.
For sure. Yes. Akiyama would make his wrestling debut on September 17th, 1992 against Kenta Kobashi. I believe it's in Korakuen Hall.
It is in Korakuen Hall, and it's a semi-main event of a show, which is huge for a debut.
Oh yeah, it right away. They're just telling you this guy is special. Keep an eye on him to the fans, and yeah, it's great. I think it's so appropriate that the person he's debuting against is Kobashi, one of his trainers, but also like someone who, as a rival and as tag team partners and as a friend in real life. Like they're so close, these two. It's if you look in their kind of relationship as a whole, professionally and personally, it's just one of those things that makes you like feel that professional wrestling isn't as always as scummy as it usually is, and there's like some great, beautiful things that come out of it. And I think the friendship and the professional relationship of Kobashi and Akiyama is one of those things.
Yeah, that's been one of the highlights of his DDT run is like Kobashi gets to come out and do, weird stuff in the Tokyo Dome when they do like their street wrestling in the Tokyo Dome. And he's on commentary all the time. And you can just, when he talks about Akiyama, you can hear the love that he has for him and the respect that he has for him for sure.
There is a lot of expectations placed on him. As JoJo said, he debuted in Korakuen Hall in the semi-main event of a card against Kenta Kobashi. But a lot of early comparisons were made to Jumbo Tsuruta, as we were talking about before. The jumping knee, he adopted that, and just like a lot of like some of the suplexes Jumbo would use, like the backdrop driver and things like that, he would also use, but not as much as like some other suplexes he would develop later on himself. It's been said, but like many wrestling journalists, I remember like when Kurt Angle got debuted on WWF television, and he was just a natural at it. Of course, like Kurt Angle's super famous for being an Olympic gold medalist, but that doesn't always translate to being a good professional wrestler. But he was like just a naturally good professional wrestler as well. Like a lot of people would compare Kurt Angle, like they're saying he's as good at wrestling this early in his career as Jun Akiyama was. And so you got to keep in mind Akiyama was before Kurt Angle, so that's not Akiyama's not being compared to Kurt Angle, obviously. But I just thought it was cool, like, oh yeah, there are some people who are just naturally good right away at professional wrestling. Kurt Angle is one of them. He's very much like Jun Akiyama in that respect.
Yeah, they share the amateur background. Obviously, Angle a lot more so. But yeah, for sure, both naturals, and were both quickly among the best in the world. Best handful of wrestlers in their company at the very least, soon after their debut.
So keeping the comparisons with Jumbo alive here, when Jumbo was like having complications with his health and stuff like that, they needed to find a new partner for Akira Taue and what remained of the Surdigun faction, and that person Jun Akiyama. He was chosen to be, Tai's regular tag team partner. He would eventually split with Taue. They didn't really last that long as tag team, but he would then shift to teaming with someone who's another person he's really closely tied to throughout most of his career in different aspects, and that would be Takao Omori.
Yeah, I guess Omori would have been the next debut, or maybe did he debut before Akiyama? Do you know?
I don't remember, but they're pretty much like
classmates, more or less, right?
Yeah, they're classmates. They're of the same generation. Like you would always put like Omori and like and Akiyama together, especially if you look
Omori
at their career.
Omori debuted 1 month after Akiyama, and he was born basically 10 days after Akiyama.
There you go. I also get the feeling these two, like, if they weren't close, like during the Noah days, that they became closer, like later on in their lives and careers when they're both back in All Japan Pro Wrestling.
Yeah, because Omori didn't last very long in Noah.
Yeah, I always heard like message boards rumors were like because like Akiyama didn't like him or something like that, and I never understood that because like one thing you look about Takao Omori, if you look at his career when he leaves Noah and he's kind of being a freelancer, like he lands pretty much regularly in 01 at that time, and I thought he was a really great fit for 01. I thought he added a lot of like substance to that roster, and then he would go work in New Japan, being a tag team partner with Manabu Nakanishi as Wild Child. And I just thought, and I was like, why isn't this guy in a like bigger company? I always thought, wow, okay, you're not in Noah anymore. I was hoping he'd go back to All Japan, like, and be a top singles guy for them, because I think he had the chops for it.
Yeah, I wonder what the connection to 01 was at the time. It's kind of random.
Maybe. Well, I mean, I can just see them like, oh, hey, would you like to come work for us? You're someone with a name.
I think he's Animal Hamaguchi Dojo. So maybe it's because Otani was also Hamaguchi Dojo that they had a connection, I would assume.
Yeah, I maybe I should clarify. I think it's either Omori had heat, maybe with Akiyama, but I think maybe he had heat with Takayama. So Takayama didn't want to team with him anymore, and then like maybe it got to the point where Takayama was like, I don't want to be in the same company as this guy either, and like they saw more value in Takayama than they did Omori or something like that. If someone can clarify, that'd be awesome. But there was some heat apparently with somebody in Noah, so he decided to leave that company. But anyways, like in the early days of both Omori and Akiyama's career in All Japan, they would become a tag team. They win the All Asia tag team titles in a tournament final against the tag team of the Fantastics, consisting of Bobby Fulton and Tommy Rogers. And this happened on January 29th, 1995. And JoJo, they would have, I think it still holds to this day, the longest lasting reign. It's a 1,076 days as All Asia Tag Team Champions. This would include 12 successful defenses, and they would lose the titles on January 9th, 1998. So 3 years later, almost to the day, to the legendary tag team of Johnny Smith and Wolf Hockfield.
Yeah, quite the upset there. I mean, it's funny because this has all happened like concurrently while Akiyama's also doing these main event tags with Misawa. Honestly, like I had no idea that this run for the All Asias with them was so long. 12 defenses. I
think, the All Asias, by 95, they're kind of an afterthought. Like, yeah, when the Can-Am Express are no longer there, being kind of like the perennial champions and like being counted on to have like these awesome mid-card, tag team matches, like obviously the legendary match they have with Kobashi and Kikuchi for those belts. But like they are kind of in this time period, kind of an afterthought. Obviously, like Akiyama's, more people know him for like the stuff he's doing with Misawa, contesting for the All Japan World Tag Team titles, and not so much defending these with Omori. So like in your case, like you're saying, like maybe you might not be the only one who's like, oh, I didn't know this reign existed, or like he had this long running tag team with Takao Omori. So it's interesting, but it's not the only time. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Also, Wolf Hawkfield, better known as Jim Steele, in the later part of his career. What a career in big time tag matches in Japan this guy had in both companies. Really doesn't get any recognition for it today, but had a good run.
He did have a good run. I think like after the Noah split, like who's he team with? George Hines, I think.
Right. So, yeah, but he had a team with Bart Gunn too for a while.
Right. Bart Gunn, Mike Barton. that guy really did well for himself after knocking out Steve Williams.
He sure did.
And getting fired.
He had a pretty decent run in All Japan, then got to work New Japan a bit too.
Yeah.
I mean, way better than his WWF run.
Oh yeah, like he got hired because he legit knocked out Steve Williams in the Brawl for All, and so like Baba's like, "Oh, you got fired? Come work for me. I can use that as an angle. I can build you up like as the guy who knocked out Steve Williams. He's a legend in this country,
for sure, and in that company too.
Oh yeah, and then they would obviously work. They would do an angle with Williams after he comes back to All Japan as well. But it's not his only time he would hold the All Asia Tag Team titles. He would also hold them twice more. Once in 2014 with his long-standing kind of kohai and partner Yoshinobu Kanemaru, and then in 2018 in a really fun run with Yuji Nagata. And I think this is a good time to talk about like Yuji Nagata and Akiyama's relationship, JoJo.
Let's do it. It's another love story of Japanese professional wrestling.
It is. Like I remember when Nagata came back to New Japan after his excursion in WCW, and he starts very soon after, like, and this is the early 2000s, he starts wearing blue a lot. So I'm like, oh, and then he starts using the Exploder suplex. Yeah. That's one of his signature moves. And you got to keep in mind that the Exploder suplex is a move that was invented by Jun Akiyama. And then in the 90s, Jun Akiyama's signature color was blue. And I'm like thinking, is there some kind of connection between these two guys? This is before really the internet and like wrestling Twitter or even like the message board. So it's like just, as a fan, I'm just left to speculating, but they would have like these comparisons, I think, talked about between them because their use of similar move sets and like Akiyama, Nagata's use of the color blue for his gear. And then, later on they would meet and it was a big deal. Like what was the first time they met? Do you remember?
I'm pretty sure the first match that they were in together was the main event of the first 0-1 show.
That's right. Where Nagata's teaming with Hashimoto against Akiyama, and his partner would be Misawa. Yeah. Yeah. And I missed that one. I went to a 0-1. No, I went to the Noah show, though, in 2000 with Misawa and I think it was Takeshi Rikio, against Hashimoto and someone else. I forget, Ryoji Sai maybe, Kohei Sato, one of those young boy 0-1 guys.
Alexander Otsuka.
Was it Otsuka? My memory is terrible these days, and I didn't bother looking this up. But
okay, so yes, that was their first match. They were on opposite sides, and then the first time they teamed, which was another excellent tag team match, was a Tokyo Dome match against Hase and Muto. That is some wrestling pedigree right there on both sides.
Hase and Muto, a legendary tag team in New Japan against Akiyama and Nagata, two guys who are, they're kind of similar generations, aren't they? Like they pretty much, came up in wrestling in different companies at the same time.
Nagata and Akiyama?
Yeah.
They debuted the same week.
There you go. So I got to imagine like Nagata is watching Akiyama and vice versa, because I don't necessarily think Nagata is like blowing people away early on in his career.
But he had an even more successful amateur career than Akiyama did. So I'm sure they probably crossed paths back then too.
And a lot of times, like wrestlers from either company or like wrestlers from different companies would secretly become friends and have dinner like very clandestinely. Like apparently, like Misawa and Muto were really good friends for a long time, but no one knew any of this because like you had to keep kayfabe alive because like Baba and Tony Inoki would both blow gaskets if they found out that these two were meeting secretly. Like we are islands unto ourselves. We do not mingle with the enemy, which would they would be considered, right? Like All Japan and New Japan especially.
For sure.
So my headcanon is that like Nagata and Akiyama were like, going out to like a secure izakaya and just drinking and eating izakaya food until the wee hours, and then getting like driven home by people that they could trust, like and no one would, and the press never found out about any of this stuff, and Baba and Inoki never found out about any of this stuff either.
I buy it for sure. I mean, after that tag, that 0-1 tag, their careers were pretty much like would always come back to each other. Maybe not so much in the very recent years, but they would interact a lot after that.
So like Nagata would use like the regular exploder, but he also adopted like the wrist clutch version of it.
Yeah. Exploder of Justice, I think he calls it.
What a great name. Wait. And then like I always love these names. Like there's like for Akiyama, one of his moves is called the Sternness Dust. I love that name.
Yeah.
Exploder with Justice. That's great. But like also like Akiyama would adopt the Nagata Lock 2, which is the crossface. And Nagata taught it to him. It's like, this is how you put it on. You crank it on. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna use that too. So he never used it as a finisher per se, but he used it to like weaken people if he wants to put on his guillotine choke like later on in his 2000s career. But this run with the All Asia tags though, it was very, very like, I thought it was just a fun way to like have Nagata do something because he's being completely neglected in New Japan at the time. And like I always maintain, like if there's one veteran dude, like you can if there's two veteran guys you can push still in New Japan in 2018, one is Yuji Nagata, the other would be Satoshi Kojima. But like Nagata would have like a lot more use seen of him like in All Japan or in Pro Wrestling Noah in around this time period.
Yeah, and there was a rumor around that time, 2017, 2018, that like because Nagata was so underused that he was just going to go full time with Kojima and Tenzan and Nakanishi to All Japan. Obviously that didn't pan out, but yeah, for sure. I'm a big Yuji Nagata fan too, and I enjoyed those tag matches.
Okay, just on that point, I don't think Tenzan would have or Nakanishi would have gone anywhere, to be honest with you. Like I think they're both like toast by then, like, and they know it. Whereas like Kojima, I can see like, you know what? I had a nice return. They don't use me. I'm just here to put other people over. And like I think it for him, like a return to All Japan would have been really fun for him. He definitely would have been like, big fish in a little pond. But I think it would have been, I think, been great for him, like in ring wise. And then Nagata going somewhere else would have been amazing. Like, especially if he's with like allied with like Akiyama and they're like this veteran team that other younger wrestlers have to overcome. Great. Yeah.
Both of those guys, Nagata and Kojima, not to get too far off topic here, but both had great singles matches with Yuma Aoyagi in Lionsgate. So obviously we could have seen more of that stuff happening if they would have done All Japan.
Wow. It was not meant to be neither Lionsgate nor a relationship between New Japan and All Japan in like the 2010s there. But getting back to Akiyama in All Japan in the 90s, he would, or actually later on, but like he talk about like, things he would go back to. He would also reform his tag team with Takao Omori, and they would hold the All Japan World Tag titles a total of 3 times, twice in 2014 and once more in 2018. And they would be collectively known as Wild Burning, combining their tag team names of their more well known tag teams with other people. With Omori, it'd be with like he had two tag teams using the word wild. It was Wild Child with Nakanishi, and then Wild Heart with Manabu Soya, right?
Get Wild.
Oh, Get Wild. They had the great theme song. I remember. So he and then so him and of course Akiyama's most famous tag team was with Kobashi in Burning. So that was a fun run they had as a tag team. Again, a great idea of like these two veterans who are All Japan legends at this point, just there to help like be kind of what are they, gatekeepers to the younger generation. But like when they put him over, hey, it means a lot. So he's always been really good about this, especially in his later career. But back to 1996, JoJo. During this All Asia Tag Title reign in 96, Akiyama was picked to be Misawa's new regular tag team partner in Super Generation Army because Kenta Kobashi decided, hey, I need to get away with you, and I need to start teaming with Johnny Ace.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It really is. But they had like Get. Was that their team?
Global, energetic, tough.
Yeah. With the Patriot, right?
With the Patriot, yeah. the three most likely people you would associate if you're gonna we're gonna get Kenta Kobashi out of Super Generation Army. We're gonna get him away from Akiyama and Misawa. Who's the most like? What would be natural? Johnny Ace and the Patriot. But you know what? That being said, Johnny Ace and Kenta Kobashi are a fun tag team. They do have really good chemistry with one another as teammates. I gotta give them that. So, so Misawa and Akiyama have like a series of fucking great tag matches with tons of teams. They would win the world tag titles from Kawada and Taue on May 23rd, 1996, and have two successful defenses with those belts before losing them to Johnny Ace and Steve Williams on September 5th, 1996. Misawa and Akiyama would have even better like success in the World Tag League, the real World Tag League. They participated twice in 1996 and 1997 and reached the finals both times, but they never won them. They never won the tournament because they were defeated both times by the Holy Demon Army of Kawada and Taue. And both those matches, anytime Kawada and Taue got in there with Misawa and Akiyama, was fucking great because it's one of the rare times you got to see Akiyama interact with Toshiaki Kawada.
Yeah. And those tag matches are awesome. That first one, the one in Sapporo that was in May 96, that was Akiyama's first World Tag Challenge, and he got the pin on Kawada in that match. Apparently,
like I was reading that like someone asked him, what did you think about Kawada? And he said, during the Royal Road era, I hated him. We didn't like each other, and like he beat the shit out of me.
Yeah. Recently I saw him talking to Takagi and Ishii from DDT, and he said the most painful move that he would take was a spin kick to the head, which is obviously a Kawada thing. So I think that had lasting impressions upon him still today.
I would hope that they're not they don't hate each other anymore. It's like at least be like, oh hi, if they see each other, it's like, oh, it's nice to see you again, nice to see you, and just be cordial at the very least. But I don't know if he's ever done one of those like talk battles with Kawada on like a Holy War show or anything like that.
I don't think he has. I know Kobashi has done it with both, but yeah, it's an interesting pairing. But yeah, these tag matches, they were great together.
I kind of like fantasy book if like the split never happened. That my God, what a pairing the Kawada and Akiyama would have made.
The grumpiest tag team.
That would have been great. But it is quite magical. I'm really sad you don't get like a series of really great high end singles matches with Akiyama against Kawada, because like he has those with Misawa and Kobashi and spades, and to some lesser degree a bit with Taue, but he doesn't really have like a series of them like where you can say that's a match of the year contender. That's match of the year contender with Toshiaki Kawada, which is, I think, unfortunate.
For sure. I think to that point also about, Akiyama not having the fondest memories. In that same interview with Takagi and Ishii, he also mentions that he hated being in the Champion Carnival because it was so taxing on his body. I think he only missed it 1 year due to injury while, in his initial All Japan run. But yeah, we would have, I guess really what we have is these tag team matches to think of what could have been between Akiyama and Kawada.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, talking about having a getting beat up in the ring and things like that. Like, I remember I read something where Akiyama revealed during like a 2009 seminar he was part of at a university that, like by the time, like around the time he's like 27 years old, so around 1996, 1997, he's like dealing not only with like the injuries that come with working the Royal Road style, but he's also suffering from panic attacks a bit at this point, because like he's getting this, he's like being like chosen to be like, okay, you're gonna eventually take over from Misawa, and this gets exasperated in Noah, especially after the death of Misawa and like the lingering health issues of Kenta Kobashi, where it's like, okay, you have to take over this. Apparently, these are things that he had had to deal with on top of his physical injuries. So it's really amazing to think about, like, you watch him around this time like that, like, with his mental health and his physical health are both like at kind of low ebbs in a lot of respect compared to like people who might be his contemporaries or people who are older than him.
Yeah, around this period, he did look a little skinny still. 96, 97. He's really tall, so he's a little lanky at this time. But it's amazing. You wouldn't know that he was, struggling mentally because he was having amazing matches.
So it's after a couple of years of being Misawa's tag partner, he shifts his alliance from Misawa to Kenta Kobashi and form the tag team / unit of Burning and JoJo. Like, outside of the Holy Demon Army, this is probably my favorite tag team of this era. Just, I thought Kobashi and Akiyama stylistically, historic, like if you look at their historical connection, personal connection with one another, and just aesthetically, they were such a natural fit with one another. Yeah,
for sure. I completely agree. I'm a huge Burning fan. And obviously, even on the opposite sides of the ring, I don't know if we'll talk about it much, but like Kobashi's Triple Crown defense against Akiyama in July 1998 is literally my favorite match ever. So I'm a big fan of the chemistry that these guys have together. I'm a big fan of the tag team matches that they had against the Untouchables, Misawa and Ogawa. And like, because of their relationship, like, that also creates an attraction for me towards guys like Kanemaru, even guys like Kentaro Shiga. Anybody associated with Burning for me gets a special level of interest. So yeah, I'm completely on the same page with you there.
It's interesting to see, like, if we talk about the Untouchables, which is the tag team Misawa would form after Akiyama with Yoshinari Ogawa, who's in the junior heavyweight league before moving up to becoming like quote unquote a heavyweight. I don't think he ever was truly a heavyweight, but he was like Misawa's guy. He's like, Misawa said, he's going to be my tag team partner because I really like him. He's an excellent wrestler. And like, kind of like they're trying to develop a very strong rivalry between Ogawa and Akiyama that would carry on, like, play into like their relationship in the rivalry in Pro Wrestling Noah. I remember like they're doing I get this tape where they're doing this thing where, okay, we're going to have a series of matches between Untouchables and Burning. And so they have to draw these balls out, and like inside the balls, they open them up. It's like a gotcha machine kind of thing, but it's just from a basket. And inside is the name of your opponent who you're going to fight on that show. And like, Akiyama gets Ogawa. He just throws the ball down in anger because he wanted Misawa, right? Yeah. He wanted Misawa. He just throws it down. He's like pissed off. And Ogawa, he knows immediately, you picked my name, you motherfucker. He just like goes to confront him. And the heat between these two is so hot and so thick. It's great. I just one of my favorite. I gotta see if I can ever find that clip. Like, I don't know if I can ever find it on I might be on a DVD I have as opposed to a tape. If it's on tape, I'm there's no chance I don't have a VCR anymore. But yeah, just they've had a good rivalry as well over the years.
For sure. I mean, obviously, spilled into Noah and resulted in Ogawa winning the GHC heavyweight title. But I think, what gives Ogawa or gave Ogawa so much credibility at the time is those interactions with Akiyama, just because Akiyama was, the chosen one to some extent. Like, around this time, they weren't really using like the four pillars terminology that much, because Akiyama had ascended to that level where they were kind of calling them like the Power Five, Gokyo in Japanese. So he was completely on the same level as the other guys at this point.
Right. And we'll talk a bit about before the Exodus. Like, I really get the impression that, Misawa's booking the company in the late 90s before the split, that he's got his idea of who he wants to kind of be the next kind of like group of people that he wants to carry. And we'll talk a bit about that. But one of them is the ace is definitely going to be Jun Akiyama for sure.
Yeah. And I think he he starts teaming with Ogawa and lets Akiyama go off to team with Kobashi to elevate Akiyama, so that, when it comes time that he does get to challenge for the Triple Crown, this never happened, obviously, that he didn't know instead, that Misawa would drop the Triple Crown to Akiyama to really cement his status in the main event. But, if you take what happened in Noah as kind of the continuation of Misawa's booking, then you kind of do get it.
So Burning would win the All Japan World Tag Team titles twice. First time January 7th, 1999 over the Holy Demon Army. And they would lose these titles to Johnny Ace and Mike Barton, Bart Gunn, on June 9th, 1999. Their second time would be winning them on October 23rd, 1999 over the Untouchables, Mitsuharu Misawa and Yoshinari Ogawa. And they would lose these titles to Steve Williams and Vader on February 20th, 2000. I wrote funny. I wrote 2020 here. That would not be possible. 2000 here. And then they also participated and won the Real World Tag League twice, and they won it both times. So he's having much more success with Kenta Kobashi as his partner than when he was teaming with Mitsuharu Misawa. So in the 1998 finals, Burning goes over Stan Hansen and Vader. And then in 1999, they go over to win the tournament by beating Stan Hansen and Akira Taue this time. And Stan Hansen being a kind of a good luck charm for Jun Akiyama as far as like, he's kind of, this is pretty much the twilight of Hansen's career, because he is so beat up. But, he's always good there for his aura. And if he hits you with that lariat, it's still going to be stiff as hell.
Was Kawada hurt at this time?
Yeah, this is like, I think when he broke his arm, right? In the match with Misawa, in the Ganzo Bomb match.
Yeah, that was 99, right?
Yeah, that was 99.
Yeah. So that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
So Taue's okay. He needs a partner. So they're like, yeah, Hansen's not doing anything, because I think, who's Vader teaming with in the 99 one? He's in the 99 one. Is he teaming with Albright?
We just said, right? Dr. Death, no?
Oh, Dr. Death. Yeah, because they're the tag team champions in 2000. Yep, sorry, my mistake. So they would have probably, got a title shot. Maybe they pinned Burning in the 99 league or something like that. But they twice World Tag Team champions, twice Real World Tag League champions as well. So a great tag team. It would not last much longer. As we'll talk about once we get into Pro Wrestling Noah, but so that's his tag career. Really great tag career. Like the team with Omori, like a low key, but probably like good run with Omori, but also being thrust into the main event scene Misawa as being his new partner and being his protege, and then teaming with Kobashi and more on a not so much as a protege, but more like this guy's like my younger peer, so to speak. Because I think you get that more of a sense of that in Burning than you did with his team with Misawa.
Yeah, he was definitely like under Misawa's wing, but you don't get that same vibe with Kobashi. Like he was kind of the guy that was chasing Kobashi the whole time, but he wasn't like being developed by Kobashi. He was more like, he debuted against him, right? They're more peers.
Right. But also like we have to talk about like he also had a very significant singles career.
So one more tag team, underrated tag team with Akitoshi Saito.
That's in Noah.
But I'm just saying his tag team career.
Oh, yeah, but I was going to say that for Noah.
Okay.
We're going to talk about his GHC stuff with in Noah. But yeah, actually, if he does have one, he was going to develop, I believe, a tag team with Manokea Mossman, aka Taiokeya. And yeah. I think Taiokeya was one of those guys that was going to, Baba and Masao were going to, he's going to be one of our guys. Who's going to,
sure.
And he's going to, I think it was going to be very similar where Akiyama was going to be the Misawa to his Akiyama. Like that's why he was going to be paired with Akiyama as a tag team. And I think the other guys were probably going to be like Takao Omori and Yoshihiro Takayama, who had just come over from UWFI, right?
That's right. That 2000 champion Carnival, you start to kind of see those movements happening. And I remember Akiyama and Keiya did team a bit right at the very end of his run in All Japan. So yeah, I think Keiya would have been there for sure. Omori would have been there for sure. Can't really think like Shiga would not have been there. Takayama for sure would have been there.
I think Ogawa would have got a semi-main event push, not so much but he did win the GHC title.
Yeah, right. Like obviously Misawa liked him.
So
the one that I always wonder what could have been, I guess he would have been more of a junior because he ended up being one in New Japan. But I wish we got more Kakihara in All Japan.
Yeah, he was in Untouchables, right?
He was, yeah. I think he came over with Albright and Takayama when UWF closed, and then he was like kind of the fall guy in Untouchables.
But I think he was still like he slimmed down when he went to New Japan, so he was in the juniors. Could have
been a heavyweight. I think
he could have been a heavyweight in All Japan. I think he would have been pushed as a heavyweight. He does briefly like I think he's part of like that initial like jumping over from All Japan to Noah. I think also Bart Gunn was going to probably be pushed as like one of their key heavyweight guys along with Vader. Like, but as Vader winds down, like, he's the last legs of his career, let's be honest, in 2000, like Bart Gunn is someone that they probably would have pushed as well, along with maybe like Jim Steele. And like, there's something to be said about loyalty. Like, okay, Jim Steele, Johnny Smith, these guys have been with us for a long time. And like, by this, I think Johnny Ace would eventually have like moved to the United States, back to like permanently working for WCW. Which is what he did, and then jumped to the WWE during the WCW buyout. But it's interesting. Like that's probably my biggest what if. What if the Noah split never happened? What if Misawa pushed out Mrs. Baba and he took over the company and he just kept everything like the IP of All Japan and never split? Like what a thought. Like
I wonder if you still would have gotten Muto jumping the next year.
Maybe because they were friends.
Yeah.
And I think Muto really wanted to get away from Inokiism in that period. Like he just was like, this is not for me. You guys are ruining this company. Like, like a lot of people, I mean, Hashimoto left and he would be the guy who would have been like most fit in, but like, the only musketeer who stays in that period is Chono. And not even he could like, keep it from like taking over the booking of the company. But Muto saw an opportunity for himself. Like I don't think he would have been the president of the company. Obviously, it would have been Misawa, but I think he would have had a nice like salary offer and to make you'd be like, yeah, okay, I'll come over here. Maybe his ego wouldn't have been as rampant as this in 2021. So even a lot easier to deal with maybe back then as well. But yeah, so he does have a significant singles career, having notable matches with all members of the Four Pillars, particularly with Kenta Kobashi and Mitsuharu Misawa. And in the mid to late 90s, he was like you were saying, JoJo, like they're not using the Four Pillars so much because he's kind of joined them. He's the unofficial fifth pillar. What did you call him? The Power Five?
Yeah, in Japanese they call him Gokyo, which is like 5 strong. But I in English, I mean the term doesn't really get used in English. I think it's kind of a blind spot for most people. But I translated to Power 5. Yeah,
Power 5. Akiyama challenges for the Triple Crown 4 times in this period of the mid to late 90s, twice against Misawa on September 6, 1997, and on January 26, 1998. He, of course, doesn't win any of those matches, but he has great showings against Misawa in those matches. He challenges Kenta Kobashi when he's Triple Crown champion on July 24th, 1998. And then finally, once against Vader when he's the Triple Crown champion on January 23rd, 2000. And it's interesting. During this time, he never wins the Triple Crown, but like that's All Japan booking. Like I think if the split doesn't happen, he's going to become Triple Crown champion probably 2001 or 2002.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I think it would have still been from Misawa. So if connect the two promotions histories, you kind of end up getting it. But yeah, those matches against Misawa are all great. And like I said, that 98 match against Kobashi is literally my favorite match ever. So highly recommend these Triple Crown challenges that he had.
I think Misawa would have put over Akiyama for the Triple Crown before he would have ever put over Kawada for the Triple Crown.
Yeah, probably.
He would eventually win the Triple Crown twice during his second stint in All Japan Pro Wrestling. His first time was by defeating Suwama on October 23rd in 2011. He would lose, and this is while he's still in Pro Wrestling Noah, by the way. So I should clarify that. So he wins his first Triple Crown while he's still a member of the Noah roster, and they're doing co-promotion with All Japan. It's a great time for this kind of stuff, by the way, like interpromotional stuff. So he has some defenses with the title before losing it to Masakatsu Funaki on August 26, 2012 in a match that's less than 5 minutes long.
I don't believe I've seen that match.
I can't remember if I've seen it or not. But this is kind of like a trend, it seems, with Funaki, like, because he just won the GHC national title from Keno in less than 5 minutes too, didn't he? He did. So just last week. So Masakatsu Funaki, the master of the sub 5 minute match for winning major titles in professional wrestling, it's not a bad reputation to have, in my opinion. His second time, he's a full on member of the All Japan Pro Wrestling roster. He defeats Akibono on November 1st in 2015, and then loses to Suwama on January 2nd of 2016. He wins the Champion Carnival in 2013. April 29th is the finals, and he defeats Kai. But I would say he wins it in 2013, JoJo, but his most significant carnival was in 1998 because he reached the finals of that tournament before losing to Mitsuharu Misawa. Yeah,
for sure. Of like his pre-split All Japan run, that's the best one for sure. He also had a really good run, kind of a couple different years in like the mid 2010s too.
Of what, the Champion Carnival?
Yeah.
Like there's a period of like stuff that's kind of lost, I feel, in a lot of like discussions, because like when we talk about Japan these days, it's like, it's like the Okada era of New Japan, but there is like so much great stuff that's kind of flying under the radar in All Japan and Noah at this time, that people should definitely check out, including these carnival runs that JoJo is talking about. But I would say Akiyama's most significant singles win for me has to be from February 27th, 2000, where he finally defeats Mitsuharu Misawa for the first time in his career in an excellent match. I do a review of this match for this series, Long and Winding Road. It's with Ed Cody, and that's for episode 7. Go check out that episode. Watch the match first, and then go listen to the review. But this is one of those matches like I vividly remember watching the tape of and just being blown away by like, wow, that was amazing. Like Akiyama has reached the level as a singles wrestler. He's finally defeated Misawa. Like he's on his way. I feel it's very similar, and I think just history took a different direction, but it's very similar to when Jumbo lost to Misawa for the first time.
For sure, this match is a special one for me too. I remember High Spots used to sell tapes that were COOP, which I believe stands for a copy of original packaging, right? So you would get like a copy of the VHS, but then like a photocopy of the cover of the VHS case. So I actually had this Excite Series 2000 COOP tape from High Spots. It also has a Kobashi Triple Crown match against Vader. But yeah, I think this is like his big last hurrah in All Japan. Definitely like the punctuation to his like being ready to be in the main event after jumping to Noah.
Yeah, and he was definitely like, you could tell like he's clearly okay. Kobashi's going to be the guy who, like, as Misawa, like his original plan was to like phase himself out of this and just run the office for the most part, and probably just be in like comedy 6-man tag matches because he didn't want to be like, he was going to make Kobashi the ace of the company. Like, though I will argue like he should have made Kobashi and Kawada the aces of the company. That would have been better for everyone in general. But Akiyama was going to be that guy who is just simmering underneath, and he's going to take over the company as the top guy in the company, as the top star. Probably by the time 2003 hits, like that's probably the timeline for him. That's in my opinion.
Yeah, and that like lines up with Kobashi getting injured and then becoming ill. Obviously, he had a monstrous run in Noah around then too. But I think you would have seen Akiyama in atop the company for sure. Carrying as the flag bearer at that point, but if not earlier.
This, of course, brings us to the exodus of the Noah. How many is this? Like 25 people leave Noah to join Mitsuharu Misawa in leaving All Japan. Due to like
basically the entire roster other than Fuchi and Kawada, right?
Exactly, and some of the foreigners, they all go to this new promotion, Pro Wrestling Noah. It's like I think it's kind of course there's the illusions of Noah's Ark. So like it's a safe haven. If you want to get away from Motoko Baba, then you got to get on board the Ark and go to Pro Wrestling Noah. But immediately, Akiyama is slotted to be the guy, because in the main event of Noah's first ever show on August 5th, he wins he wins both falls of this 2 out of 3 falls tag match, where he's teaming with Kenta Kobashi against the team of Mitsuharu Misawa and Akira Taue. He wins the first fall by choking out Misawa, and then he wins the second fall by pinning Akira Taue. This is a great match. I highly recommend it. This is a really, really great match. And Akiyama is just pure fire in this thing. And you can tell he gets pretty much all the shine in this. Like Kobashi is there and he's holding his own for sure. But like all the shine is on Akiyama, like choking out Misawa. That's a big thing. And then pinning Taue. And also, he, in the aftermath, the post-match of this is that he turns heel on Kenta Kobashi by giving him a backdrop driver.
Yeah, we wouldn't get their combination of burning in Noah because of this. And Akiyama would adopt that sternness moniker that we talked about briefly. But yeah, he comes out wearing white tights, no longer wearing the blue. He's got his hair kind of bleached for 20 minutes, so it's like an orangey color. But yeah, great match, great turn, and obviously leading into another great main event the next night.
Yeah, on August 6th, Kenta Kobashi versus Jun Akiyama, which Jun Akiyama wins by choking out Kobashi this time with his guillotine chokehold. And it signals, this new Akiyama, this guy who's not going to be in the shadow of anyone else in the company, not in the shadow of Misawa, not in the shadow of Kenta Kobashi. And it's a great post match afterwards because, I think it's Takeshi Rikio comes in and he's so angry at the treatment of Kobashi at the hands of Akiyama that he comes in and he's just starts tagging him, and then Akiyama just dismisses him, kicks him, and then throws him out of the ring. He's like, "You're beneath me, get out of here." And then Yoshinobu Kanemaru leaves Burning to join Sternness, which will become the name of Akiyama's new faction. I love that name, by the way, Sternness. I just think it's such a Japanese, kind of borrowed English word unit name, but I think it just fits him so well. I'm not a huge fan of the makeup of Sternness so much because I'm not a big fan of Akitoshi Saito. I do think him and Akiyama are a very good tag team, but I just never got into Akitoshi Saito, even in his tag team with Akiyama. But hey, Yoshinobu Kanemaru, awesome junior heavyweight and great heel in his own right. And
also you have Makoto Hashi, who was Akiyama's kohai at the time. And currently on Akiyama's YouTube channel, there's a series of them making chanko together and reminiscing about the All Japan and Noah days, which is pretty entertaining.
It's trying to be funny because Makoto,
yeah.
Makoto Hashi was basically Akiyama's whipping boy.
Yeah, basically.
Because he's actually a very solid wrestler. I was always entertained by Hashi because he was a junior heavyweight, and he had some really great chemistry with Kenta and Marufuji and with Sugiura as well and people like that. But Akiyama, if he teamed with Akiyama, Akiyama would have used him. If he was on the opposite side of a match with Akiyama, Akiyama would beat the shit out of him. Didn't matter if they were on the same side or opposite ends. He was going to get abused by Jun Akiyama in the ring.
I mean, he has to live up to that those grumpy expectations.
That's right. So in Noah, he's a 3-time GHC heavyweight champion. He's the person to defeat the first champion, which is Mitsuharu Misawa, on July 27th, 2001, thus becoming the second champion in that belt's history. He would defeat Akira Taue on January 22nd, 2006. And then 3 years later, he would defeat the outsider, Kensuke Sasaki, on March 1st, 2009 for this particular title. I think one of the significant things is who he loses these titles to, during these reigns. And I think the first one is to Yoshinari Gao, which you mentioned before, JoJo. But I think his second reign, he loses to Naomichi Marufuji, which I thought by the way, it's an excellent match.
Yeah.
And I just think, I thought this is a signal that they're not going to be restrictive. If someone is over and if someone's really good, it doesn't matter how big they are. You can push them as a heavyweight. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out. I thought they pulled the plug too soon on Marufuji.
Yeah.
But what a great way for him to start off was to get this really great win over Jun Akiyama.
Yeah, and I think at that time they were saying basically this is junior heavyweight Naomichi Marufuji in a GHC title match. So not really, giving it the full go ahead. Obviously he wins, but not, treating him as a heavyweight. Eventually he would get to that point where they were calling him a heavyweight. But yeah, that's a great match too.
Him and Kenta. I feel it's just a wasted opportunity. You could have had these guys be main eventers a lot sooner than they did, considered to be on the level of a heavyweight wrestler a lot sooner, because they would eventually get there without really adding that much mass to their bodies. I feel when they're finally considered heavyweights, it's they're not that much bigger than when they were juniors. And you could have had them at this level a lot sooner. like I think they should have won. There's that tag match they have against the Untouchables, Kenta and Marufuji. I think they should have won that match. My opinion.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. They were deserving of being treated as heavyweights, regardless of their
one of my favorite matches from this era of Noah is the time limit tag draw they have with the two Takeshis, Morishima and Rikio.
Wild 2.
That's right. I never got Rikio. Like, he's a good tag wrestler. Never understood like why they put him as GHC heavyweight champion, especially he beat Kobashi. What a waste. But that was a great match.
That tag match is awesome for sure.
That is it's a time limit draw. And I just think I come out of this, JoJo, I was just thinking, okay, future Noah right there. Plus like Sugiura also, like you guys are set. You guys are set for the next 10 years. If like, unfortunately, Morishima just collapses because of his, he has to retire because of diabetes. Rikio just, injuries, he gets out of wrestling. And then, Kenta Marufuji, we know what, they're still in wrestling, obviously, but, not at an elite level that you think. And of course, Noah, has his ups and downs, in that period as well. But it is what it is. But back to Akiyama, he's not only is he a 3-time GHC heavyweight champion, he's also a 3-time GHC heavyweight tag champion, twice with Akitoshi Saito and once with Takeshi Rikio, which I actually like that team, and I just wish it lasted longer.
The Rikio team?
Yeah.
Yeah, Rikio kind of has a very short career when you look back at it. He really only wrestled full-time for like 10 years. So I think he could have done a lot more. And it would have been cool to see. That would have been a one to see get stretched out more with teaming with Akiyama for sure.
No, I like I said, I'm not a huge fan of Saito. I think he does have a good tag team with Akiyama. I never fully got into it just because here's the thing. Saito, I hate his fucking look to the point where like it's a huge turnoff for me. Like the baggy pants, the gut hanging out, and the mullet. It's all of it combined is just a fucking turnoff for me. Yeah. What JoJo, what are your thoughts on this tag team with Saito? Like just this particular tag team. But if you want to, go further and like Saito as a wrestler, just himself, that's fine as well.
I mean, I think the tag team with Akiyama is the best work that Saito ever did. There's an excellent match, a couple excellent matches. There's one with them against Otani and Masato Tanaka that's really good from, I think, 2003, maybe January. There's a really, really good one against Kobashi and Tamon Honda. And yeah, I mean, I'm not, this episode is clearly not about Akitoshi Saito, but that team produced some excellent matches as well.
Right. I think there's the last match I reviewed was the Misawa Kobashi Classic, where Kobashi wins the GHC title. Mm-hmm. And I believe, the next challenger is going to be Saito. Mm-hmm. So they have a shot of him watching the match from like the back, like, back of the first floor, the main floor.
The corner. Yeah.
And he's wearing sandals and a towel and a Speedo. And I just think, oh my God, this man is the sleaziest looking person in all of wrestling at this moment.
Yeah, he definitely has a very grimy look, and he's always had that look. He's one of a very few Japanese wrestlers who's had a tattoo his entire career, which is obviously not normal in Japan. He's got that greased back hair. But yeah.
He's also had that mullet too.
Yep, for sure. Still has the mullet.
Akiyama was the inaugural GHC Hardcore Open Weight Champion. He created his title. I never understood this title, JoJo. In fact, I hate it. Like, I just thought this is like a gimmick belt. It's like this fucking like King of Pro Wrestling thing they fucking got Yano doing. To me, it's a little bit more serious, obviously, but it's just like, why? I know, like, he was just trying to give himself something to do while like he's not in the GHC heavyweight title mix. But I don't think, creating a quote unquote hardcore championship, like, because this is also like the time of the height of like the hardcore title in the WWE, WWF. So I don't know. What are your thoughts about this title?
Yeah, I'm not a fan either. It doesn't really make sense, I guess you can say. Like, it's not. I'm a traditionalist for the most part when it comes to Japanese professional wrestling, and this thing, it doesn't make sense in the context of kind of the King's Road, Royal Road lore. Maybe like an FMW style title where they're actually doing hardcore matches would have been cool, but that's not what this was.
No, it's kind of a experiment. I think he just wanted an excuse to fight Makoto Hashi and like Sugiura this time, maybe, and Marufuji and stuff in singles matches.
It was actually called the Global Hardcore Crown. They changed the meaning of the H.
Oh, there you go. But it was an open weight title.
It was an open weight title, and there was a short period where it was actually a hardcore title in 2005. And then it became, when Shiga got it, it became, like kind of a Yano type title.
It's like Shiga doing his his Japanese Afro gimmick.
Yeah, that era of Kentaro Shiga. I thought he was a decent wrestler early in his career, but then kind of fell off.
He never was going to be a star because of his frame.
Right, yeah, for sure. But like, you think of a guy like Nishimura, for example, like still a good wrestler, never going to be a main eventer because he's too skinny. But
no, but like Shiga's aspiration should have been like someone's tag partner.
For sure.
Like whether it's Akiyama or I don't know, someone else, right? Like, but his aspiration and his goals should have been like, I'm the regular tag partner of this bigger star. And then he would have been in main events for sure in that context. But he was fine. Like, I always enjoyed his work in mid card stuff. But like, if you said to me, is Kentaro Shiga a contender for someone to be a star in All Japan or Noah? I'd be like, no. Like, and then he knew it too, because he went into that fucking comedy role where he's like got, what is it, the punch perm? Is that what they call it?
Yeah.
The punch, sure. Like if you're a Dragon Gate fan, like Punch Tomonaga.
Yeah, he looks a lot like Punch at that point.
Yeah, Kentaro Shiga looks like Punch Tomonaga for those of you who are like Dragon Gate fans who are familiar with that wrestler. But yeah, not one of my favorite eras of Kentaro Shiga, definitely. But with Akiyama, he's also having a very significant 2003 JoJo, because then he participates in New Japan's G1 Climax of that year, and he has an excellent tournament. He defeats Manabu Nakanishi, Hiroshi Tanahashi, and Hiroyoshi Tenzan in the block matches. He moves on to the semifinals where he defeats Yuji Nagata, and then he meets Tenzan again in the finals because Tenzan has enough points to go into his semifinal, and then and they meet in the finals of probably one of the greatest G1 finals ever. I think you've told me, and you've been on Cruel Summer. Yeah. You reviewed this on Cruel Summer with me.
I sure did, yeah.
Because you've told me this is my favorite G1 finals of all time, and it's hard to argue against that because it is a great match.
Yeah, it is peak Tenzan too. Like, Akiyama's great in it, but just as good as Akiyama is, Tenzan is amazing in that match too.
Tenzan without the mullet is way better than Tenzan with the mullet.
Yeah, that's like real babyface Tenzan, especially with that crowd, because Akiyama was obviously a Noah guy coming into the G1, and Tenzan had just come back from an injury. Yeah, that's a great fucking match. I should watch that. I haven't watched that probably since the last time we reviewed it. But yeah, I remember Akiyama is really relentless in that match, targeting Tenzan's neck. And same thing, Tenzan was, developing the Anaconda Vice at that point too. So it's a brutal match. And obviously the heat in Real Goku in the summer is pretty brutal too. They're just like sweating all over the place. Yeah, great match.
The Anaconda Vice.
Yeah,
I love that move. I just thought, and Akiyama sells it like so beautifully in that match. He really helps establish that as a killer submission move for Tenzan. So, just go watch Akiyama's entire run in the 2003 G1, and then definitely you're gonna treat. If you haven't seen the finals with Tenzan, like go treat yourself. It is one of my favorites too, and I saw that like I got the tape of that, a DVD at this point. I got the DVD of that like maybe a month later, because like I switched to Jeff Lynch at that point, I think, and I was getting stuff
the best quality.
I got the best quality, right? And I got it like I got the best catalog every month from Jeff Lynch.
That thing was. I wonder if he still does that. You think
he does?
Okay.
He does. Apparently, he does. Like I stopped getting DVDs, but someone told me, oh yes, Jeff Lynch is still around. Like, and he'll still send. Like, it might be a PDF now. I don't know if he sends a hard copy anymore. It might be a PDF now. That might be easier. But like I remember,
you could pick like I forget how many hours fit on a tape, like 6 or 8 or something like that. So you could like pick. Okay, I want to fill up my tape with these specific 2-hour blocks or whatever.
Oh, but like by DVD time, it's like you can fill up 5 hours and it's all perfect quality of like a 2-hour SP formatted VHS. It's awesome.
I was done by the time DVDs were a thing. I was already not a wrestling fan anymore.
I think my entire like Dragon Gate DVD collection is from Jeff Lynch.
That's awesome.
So where am I now? Okay, so it's also during. Yeah, so we also mentioned that it's during this time in Noah. He wins Triple Crown for the first time. He participates in the Noah version of the G1, the Global League, and he goes to the finals and loses to Yoshihiro Takayama. He never wins the Global League, or what they call the N1 these days.
Yeah, it wasn't that big of a thing back then. And it didn't start. I forget the first year they had the Global League, but it was already like kind of after the initial burst of Noah. But yeah, he still has a chance to win it.
He does. He could show up in Noah before he eventually retires, and while he's still kind of in a kind of renaissance of his career right now.
The first year was 2010. So
right there you go. He does win, however, the Global Tag League in 2011 with Akitoshi Saito as his partner. But yeah, like it's a rough time. This like kind of like 2009 2011 period for Akiyama's tough time. He's dealing with a lot of back injuries. Like he has injuries that take him out of actually wrestling full time for a while. In 2009, but also he's dealing with the post traumatic syndrome. Because Misawa dies on June 13th of 2009, and it affects everyone on that roster, obviously, and I think it still has repercussions to this day. But like at that time, it's really really tough on Jun Akiyama, like because now the burden is completely on him because Kobashi is kind of like pretty much done with like all his injuries, surgeries, and his cancer, and Misawa dies in the ring, and it's just really tough time for Noah. It's like, can they continue? And a lot of the focus is then put on Akiyama to like, is Noah going to continue? The kind of the question is usually poised towards him.
Yeah, real rough. Like I don't know how. I can't even like wrap my head around what that must have been like, especially for him, like being so close with Misawa, like. He more or less owes his entire career to Misawa at that point. Like, obviously, the run they had in All Japan, and then like being handpicked to be the poster boy for Noah. Like, it's basically like losing a family member, I'm sure. So it's completely understandable that it would have really rocked him.
And it's during like this period is also like kind of the down period of Pro Wrestling Noah, because they have the Yakuza scandal from the book by Jun Izumida, I believe, right? And so it's like a rough time. And then, Noah's suffering financially. So at this point, like Kobashi is pretty much done with wrestling. And Noah, in order to save money, decides, well, we don't want you to have you on the books anymore. And it's like, it kind of goes against the whole philosophy of like, people like Giant Baba and Mitsuharu Misawa where like you take care of, people who are loyal to you and who work for you. And especially like someone like Kobashi, regardless if he can wrestle or not, you keep him on the payroll. Like you take care of him. You give him something to do, even if it's just being like an ambassador or anything, but you make sure he has a job always. And that's something that was a philosophy that Baba had. And that was also a philosophy that Misawa adopted and really, was, secretly he was very generous with like things like, giving people money and stuff like that. But like, this is like really, this sticks in the craw because not only is it going against kind of philosophy of like previous mentors that Akiyama has had, and it's going against like a business philosophy that he kind of grew up in, but it's also like against the man, like this man who's like his mentor and one of his best friends, if not his best friend in all of professional wrestling.
Yeah, it really goes against like everything that really defines Noah. Like Rusher Kimura and Haruka Eigen and like Mitsuo Momota were on like the Exodus roster for Noah. They didn't need to be there because of like of what they were doing in the ring, right? Like that's the culture of these companies, is that you take care and you take care of the older wrestlers, and the older wrestlers contribute in the office and that sort of thing. So it's a huge slap in the face. Especially a legend like Kobashi.
Always surprised me that Noah would do that, even with the financial troubles that they were facing. But, at the end of 2012, like, Akiyama announces, I'm leaving. And then in January of 2013, he shows up in All Japan Pro Wrestling again, but not alone. He's joined by Go Shizaki, Yoshinobu Kanemaru, Atsushi Aoki, and Kotaro Suzuki, and they are entering All Japan under the banner of Burning. And when I saw this, JoJo, I lost my mind because I thought, oh my God, because All Japan at that time was really promising because you had all this like underneath talent. You had Suwama. I love Suwama. Never turned against Suwama, but you also had Shuji Kondo and Kazayashi in the juniors. You had all this super young talent there. Manabu Soya, Kai, Seiya Sanada. Oh my God, it was so promising. And then they get bolstered by these five, especially like Go.
Yeah.
Like the like top heavyweight prospect, young guy in Noah. He jumps to All Japan with all, because of his loyalty to his mentor is also Kenta Kobashi. Aoki goes because of his loyalty to, and Kanemaru go because of their loyalty to Akiyama. And Kotaro Suzuki, I would imagine, it's a bit of both, Kobashi and Akiyama.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Kotaro was, very close with Misawa, so I'm sure, he was also very close with Akiyama. So yeah, I mean, that gave them a huge injection of talent, not just at the heavyweight level with Akiyama and Shiozaki, obviously, but Kotaro and Aoki had a great tag team. Kanemaru has some great tags with both of them.
He has a run with the All Japan Junior Heavyweight, singles Junior Heavyweight title.
Yeah, it's a if you could pick five guys, I mean, those are five great guys to start a company with, let alone like add to a company that already has a stacked roster or a growing roster. So yeah, I wish I wasn't following wrestling at this time, but if I were, I'm sure I would have loved this.
Oh, I was there when they showed up, and I lost.
Oh my God,
I lost my fucking mind, JoJo. I was like, what? Oh my God, because I was a big fan of 2012 All Japan. Because of
apparently, if you were
this,
there, yeah,
this younger roster, and like you got Suwama on top still.
That was in Korakuen.
It was in Ryogoku, wasn't it?
Oh, okay.
It was in Ryogoku, yeah. Because they did a big show at Ryogoku, and like no, that wasn't. It was in Tokyo. It wasn't Korakuen, so it had to be Ryogoku. There's no other place it could have been. Yeah, like I saw a show at Sumo Hall for All Japan because they were running it right with like because Muda was trying to get in there more regularly. I think the idea was like we're gonna eventually move back to Budokan. Never happened. It still hasn't happened. So oh well. But yeah, and just like huge, I was a huge fan of Sonata, especially, I thought, oh my God, this guy's even at that point in his career, so young in his career, like just this guy could have been what this guy could have been was this, and he became a he's a good wrestler, just doesn't never going to get the push, I think, in New Japan. But Soya, Yamato in the juniors, like Kai, I just like, and not and like good Kai, not like tank top jeans Kai, which I hate. That's a terrible version of Kai, by the way. So
current Open the Dream Gate champion Kai.
Is he current Open the Dream Gate champion? I'm not following Dragon Gate recently, so it's kind of a blind spot for me. I do kind of rectify that, but yeah, I did see a picture. Is he dressing like fucking Hiromu now?
Yeah, I could see why you would say that. Yeah, it's pretty similar. Like he has red hair and he has pants with writing all over him and stuff like that. Very colorful.
Like I think he's also wearing like a motorcycle jacket with like graffiti.
Yeah. A lot of parallels between he and Hiromu.
I was like, oh, is he doing a tribute to Hiromu? Because like that's not really his look per se. But anyways, I won't judge.
What matches from this like burning return to All Japan do you recommend?
Anything with those guys, because the heat is off the charts. Like the Shiozaki Akiyama tag team, the heavyweight tag team, is awesome. Kanemaru, who does he? You think he beats Shuji Kondo for the junior title? And Aoki and Kotaro Suzuki are become all Asia tag champions. Like I didn't research it. Like I would need to refresh my memory. But everything for like this 1 year period before the ownership changes, right? And the new owner of All Japan is like just having so much heat with Muto. The Muto leaves, and basically he has his own version of the Noah Exodus. This is like Noah Exodus Part 2, because Muto leaves and takes pretty much all the guys he trained or training the dojo under his reign as president of All Japan, go with him to form this new version of Wrestle One,
right?
And now Akiyama knows what Toshiaki Kawada feels like. Basically,
that owner was Shiraishi.
I believe so. Yeah, because he wanted to. I don't know, like something like he was like a huge fan of fucking Vince McMahon and the WWE, or it was like really disturbing things I was hearing about the company at the time, and I don't think they ever recover. Like I do think if 2013 was like if only Muto left, if Sonata, Soya, Kai and Yamato as a junior stayed, it would have been, you would have had something akin to something rivaling New Japan in that period of what New Japan would have become by the time Okada ascends to becoming the ace of New Japan Pro Wrestling. I think you could have had something similar, because then you would likely get Miyahara coming over from the dissolution of Diamond Ring, and he wouldn't stay in Noah because of obviously he has some kind of heat with Nakajima, so he would have come over to All Japan regardless. And like I look at some of the people who debut for Wrestle One, like from their dojo system, and the most prominent name for that is like Shotaro Ishino, and I would be like, fuck, like there you go, like what a collection of talent you would have had to carry you on through into the the late 2010s into like the 2020s and stuff like that. So that's just my again, just like fantasy booking that, but like I do think that's very likely what could have happened. And then you get like all like Yuma Aoyagi, you get Naoya Nomura coming through the All Japan system. Like, can you imagine all these guys like just in the same company? It would have been awesome.
Yeah, we got a lot of those people interacting over the years, but never like belonging to the same company long term. Would have been interesting to see if they would have been able to give New Japan a run for their money, but I don't put it past, Cyber Fighters are called now, give it 5 years. Let's see what happens in 5 years. I think they'll be on pretty even footing with New Japan at that point.
if All Japan continues like the way they're going, I have fears that All Japan has even at this level, which is like not a great level, but like doesn't exist. And like, hey, okay, if that means like Aoyagi, Miyahara, Jake Lee, and Naoyamura jump over to like Cyber Fight, jump over to like Noah. Like I don't want to see. I'm sorry, I don't want to see them in DDT. Like I just think I think it's a waste. They join. Can you imagine just those four join Noah? That would be what a shot in the arm. And you just get rid of all the IGF guys that Misawa is a mark for. You just get rid of all the old dudes. You don't need them. You get like the next stream guys in. Oh my god! Plus Ashido and take Suwama too, because like I love Suwama. I think he'd be a great grumpy veteran, beating the shit out of. He's younger than those guys from IGF, right? Like Fujita and Muda and like Cashin and shit like that. Like Suwama's still okay in a tag match. You can count on Suwama to be a great worker in a tag match. But anyways, we're deviating off course. This is what happens when I talk with you, JoJo. It's like we talk about like all these fantasy booking things, but back to Akiyama, because Muto leaves, he forms Wrestle One. Akiyama becomes the president of All Japan Pro Wrestling, and he's kind of the guiding force of the company for the basically the next 9 to 10 years.
Yeah, there's no way we would still have All Japan Pro Wrestling today if not for Jun Akiyama.
No,
there's just no way. He buys the company. He establishes it as a separate company, actually, with the name in English, All Japan Pro Wrestling. So he owns it, and really develops Kento Miyahara as a top star. Obviously, we talked about Yuma Aoyagi, Naoya Nomura, these guys who really become like his guys, and really saves the company from going out of business.
Yeah, also like he develops Jake Lee.
Yeah, Jake Lee.
Yeah, Yusuke Okada as a junior, like
Zeus.
Like it's interesting. Like he brings in Zeus and the Bodyguard as guys. Like, okay, these guys are from Osaka Pro. They're kind of like I never took either of them seriously, but like what are they called? The big guns, right?
Big guns, yeah. Big guns.
The big guns become like this perennial tag champion team in All Japan at the time, and like really helps establish Zeus as a star that he would become within All Japan. It's actually a really fun period. Like Akiyama's period, like there's the rough period where it's like, oh, are they going to survive? But like with the emergence of Miyahara as the top guy in the company, it's like, okay, there's some promise that this can become at least a Dragon Gate level company in terms of like box office and touring. Like definitely not on a New Japan level, but like definitely for like close to a Dragon Gate, possibly for sure. But yeah,
that didn't happen.
That didn't happen. No, but for a lot of reasons, ownership changes. Yeah. He does depart All Japan just for. I think there's you don't have to get into too much details about it, but it has a lot to do with, I think, his own. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be the president of this company anymore because I think it's too much stress for him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he basically resurrected the company from death, and then, the company starts to struggle a little bit after a few years of kind of resurgence. And I think at the end of the day, like, he wants to just be a wrestler. He wants to be a trainer and a wrestler. He's not a businessman in that context. So he eventually makes a jump.
Yeah, he is rumored to be going to go to the WWE Performance Center in Florida as a guest coach, and maybe like something akin to what Hideki Suzuki became, as you said, JoJo, or maybe like the brief stint that Kendo Kashin had at the WWE Performance Center. But and I remember this is like, oh my God, he's going to start, and he's going there, and then he's going to come back to Japan and start NXT Japan. No.
Yeah, that was a weird time.
I remember like it was like everyone was thinking it was the three names that were associated with NXT Japan were Akiyama, Daisuke Sekimoto, and Meiko Satomura, obviously. But it never came to pass because of this small thing that is called COVID. COVID happened, and thus Akiyama never leaves Japan. But he does become a guest coach for DDT, and then he starts wrestling there full time, pretty much in 2020 and in 2019, really. And then he lets his contract expire with All Japan, and then he signs fully with Cyberfight and wrestling primarily for the DDT brand. And again, I was always surprised, like he is yet to do anything regular with Pro Wrestling Noah, who's under the same ownership of DDT.
Yeah, they have to be waiting for something big. I'm sure sooner or later he will do some, more long-term stuff in Noah, but he's been great in DDT. He's all his stuff with Takeshita. I know you don't watch DDT that much, but Konosuke Takeshita is you would like him for sure. All his stuff with Akiyama is really good. He's recently reformed Burning with Tetsuya Endo, and Okada's in there too, and some younger DDT guys. So yeah, I mean, he's like the sternness, if you will, on the DDT roster. He really hasn't done anything too silly, and he continues to have really good matches, really good 6-man matches. As recently as probably this month.
I do want to watch his stuff in DDT because I do get the news that you would like. I would like it.
You would absolutely like it, especially the matches with Takeshita. He's super grumpy. They're super classic Royal Road style matches. You'll like him for sure.
What about his match with Dashinoku Dino? But I like that.
He wrestled Dino.
No, he did.
Did he have a title match?
I think Dino? He defended the open weight title.
I think you're right.
Dino, right? I don't think I'll ever. I hate Dino. I think he's just an embarrassment to wrestling in general.
I don't know that I watched that, to be honest.
Probably not. I think you would have probably remembered if you saw wrestle Dashinoku Dino. But I was saying to on the last post Perez with Joey Bay, I was saying to Joey, because we were talking about this, that I would love, because we're talking about Naoya Nomura, and the rumor is he's going to join. He's loyal to Akiyama. He's going to join him. I would hope that's that would prompt Akiyama to say, okay, you know what? I've done all I can in DDT. I'm going to take this burning unit that I formed with and I'm familiar with Tetsuya Endo. I think he's fucking great.
Yeah.
And I would take him, Yusuke Okada, who's in Burning, and Naoya Nomura, take those as a quartet, go to Noah, go in, quote unquote, invade Noah. And Endo and Noah would be awesome to see, because I think he had there's so many great wrestlers that can be serious wrestlers that wrestle for DDT, Takeshita and Endo and Higuchi. Throw Higuchi in there too. Get him into Noah as well. That would be awesome to see. But yeah, then that's where we are with Jun Akiyama's career. It's still going on. He's in DDT. He's having a renaissance with his career. I'm going to try at some point, I don't know when, but I will at some point try to catch a lot of these, using cage match and grapple and the advice of people like JoJo as my guide to what I should watch. I do have access to Cyberfight, so it's not like I can't watch this at any time.
Yeah, there's great stuff, and there's great mid-card stuff that when he had that Junretsu unit. You just got to pick out the matches you want to watch and not sit through the whole show, and I'm sure you will enjoy it.
I'll be in my little DDT serious wrestling bubble if I watch it. But let's talk briefly about his accomplishments in wrestling. We'll go through each promotion he's been in All Japan. He's been the All Asia Tag Team Champion 3 times, once with Takao Omori, once with Yoshinobu Kanemaru, and once with Yuji Nagata. He's been the Gara TV champion 1 time. I hate this title. I think it's the ugliest looking title belt in all of wrestling, JoJo.
Yeah, I can't disagree there. It's a stupid title for sure.
The Triple Crown heavyweight champion twice. We talked about who he beat. He's been World Tag Team Champion for All Japan 7 times. Twice with Kenta Kobashi, once with Mitsuharu Misawa, once with Go Shiozaki, 3 times with Takao Omori. He was in the All Japan versus Hime Pro 1-day 6-man tag tournament in 2019. This is obviously complete thing that slipped my mind, and it's probably a complete comedy thing because his tag partners were Carbell Ito and Rising Hayato.
There you go.
The less said about Carbell Ito, the better. He's won the Asunaro Cup in 1994. He won the Asunaro Tag Cup in 1998 with Takao Omori. He won the Champion Carnival in 2013. He won the Odo tournament, the Royal Road tournament in 2015. He won the one-night six-man tag team tournament in 1999 with Kenta Kobashi and Kentaro Shiga as his partners. And he's won the Real World Tag League 3 times, 1999, 1998, 1999 with Kenta Kobashi, and in 2014 with Takao Omori. By the way, Takao, like I've said this before, but like just I want to reemphasize his tag team with Takao Omori in this mid 2010 period is great. They are such a great grumpy veteran tag team, and they work so well with the younger wrestlers that they face. And I think they have this match with the Violent Giants like Suwama Ishikawa that's really fun to watch as well. And he's won the, I don't know what this is, the Zenihon Award in 2014. Maybe like just hey, kind of a Hall of Fame kind of thing, probably like contribution to All Japan Pro Wrestling. Any thoughts about his accomplishments in All Japan?
I mean, you listed them off. There's quite a long list. Obviously, I think the one like kind of empty spot is having that like pre-split Triple Crown reign, which it wouldn't have made sense at the time. But yeah, I mean, when you think about it, like I kind of think of him more as a Noah guy, just because that's like when I was in real time following. Right. Now, obviously, the vast majority of his accomplishments are in All Japan.
Yes, but speaking of Noah, he is the GHC heavyweight champion 3 times. He is the GHC tag team champion 3 times, twice with Akitoshi Saito, once with Takeshi Rikio, as I said before. He is the global hardcore crown champion once. He wins the global tag league once in 2011 with Akitoshi Saito. In DDT Pro Wrestling, and he has been the Iron Man heavy metal weight champion 3 times. Is that the one where you can just like put your hand on a ladder and you're the champion?
That's the one.
Oh, well, that's maybe not as big of an accomplishment. He's been the KOD openweight champion 1 time. I think he had a pretty significant run with that belt, right?
He did, and they did like kind of a slow burn story with him and Takeshita, where it was really hard for Takeshita to beat him. So that produced a lot of good matches. And
he has won DDT's version of the Champion Carnival, the G1, the Do Grand Prix. Is that how you pronounce it, JoJo?
It's the DO.
What does that stand for? It must stand for something.
It's King. It's the same O that's in Odo, which is Royal Road.
Oh, fuck off. Come on. All right. Awards he has won from publications: Tokyo Sports Best Tag Team Award 1999 with Kenta Kobashi, Fighting Spirit Award in 1998, Match of the Year Award 2004 against Kenta Kobashi on July 10th. That's the Tokyo Dome match.
It sure is.
Oh, that's an awesome match. Go for sure watch that. In 1992, he wins the Newcomer of the Year Award. Very fitting. If you look at you can't really know if this is a fitting award until well into these people's careers, JoJo.
Well, we just said that Nagata debuted the same week that he did, right? So it's not like he didn't have any competition. 92 had a lot of good debuts, right?
Right. So he's if you think about kind of that generation of of New Japan alone, it's pretty significant time period.
I think the thing that makes Akiyama stand out is that he was really good, like we said, really fast.
Yes, he took to it very quickly to being a pro wrestler. Outstanding Performance Award. He's won this 3 times: 2000, 2001, and then in 2011. I can definitely see why in 2000 and 2001. He's basically making sure Noah's on everyone's lips, basically. Mm-hmm. And the Technique Award in 2003. Any thoughts about the Tokyo Sports Awards that he's won throughout his career?
Yeah, I mean, I think the fighting spirit and the technique awards are pretty interchangeable. They're usually just given to like the top guy or an excellent wrestler in not the main promotion of the year, I guess is how you can say it.
Yeah.
But the match of the year is a big thing. Yeah, I mean the awards aren't super meaningful, I guess, but it just shows that he was on the top of the business for quite a while in Japan.
So from the Wrestling Observer newsletter, he is part of the Hall of Fame, the class of 2020. So he just got in recently. I remember there's always been a debate about, does Akiyama deserve going in? I'm sorry, if you are on the side, especially like in the last 3 years, if you're on the side of like, I don't think Akiyama should be in the Hall of Fame, you're out of your mind. Seriously. Like I think he should have been in just for his Noah work alone, like establishing that company to what it was and like helping keep All Japan alive. He's won Match of the Year in 1996, teaming with Misawa against Steve Williams and Johnny Ace. Match of the Year in 2004 against Kenta Kobashi. Rookie of the Year in 1993. Tag Team of the Year twice, 96 to 97 with Misawa and once in 1999 with Kenta Kobashi. So, the readers of the Wrestling Observer newsletter and Dave Meltzer got a lot of love for Jun Akiyama.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I'm just looking. I don't really follow the Observer Hall of Fame that much, but like people that got in before Akiyama, Gedo, Dr. Wagner Jr., Viano 3, Ultimo Guerrero, Nagata, LA Park, Minoru Suzuki. I mean, it's a visibility thing, right? Like,
yeah,
AJ Styles, like Akiyama should have been in before all these people.
He should have been in for like Nakamura. Like, Nakamura got in
like 2015. Yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Anyways, there's that. And then, let's just quickly, I have a list of his recommended matches that I got off of a cage match. Okay. And these are all like 8.75 or higher. That's what the cumulative rating would be on average. So I'm not going to go through all of them. There's a lot here, but like for me, I'm just going to kind of like in order. I'm going to point out the January 26th, 98 against Misawa. There's a July 24th, 98 against Kenta Kobashi. I would recommend. There's like these pair of tag matches with the Burning against the Untouchables in March 6th and October 23rd, both from 1999. There's the Misawa match from 2000 that we talked about. There's the 12/23 2000 in Noah against Kenta Kobashi. Yep. There's the Pro Wrestling 01 match you talked about, Akiyama and Misawa versus Hashimoto and Yuji Nagata from March 2nd, 2001. There's listen, just anytime you see Akiyama versus Kobashi or Misawa as a singles, just go watch it. It's going to be fucking awesome. February 17th, 2002, Akiyama and Yuji Nagata taking on Kenta Kobashi and Mitsuharu Misawa. There's the G1 finals we talked about. There's July 10th, 2004, we talked about Akiyama versus Kobashi. Here's a really under the radar match that I absolutely love. August 4th, 2005, Wrestle 1, the first incarnation of this company. Jun Akiyama versus Katsuyori Shibata. Oh my God. Shibata just waylays Akiyama in the early parts of this match, and then Akiyama like turns the tide in his favor, and he nearly kills Shibata in this match. It's unbelievable how good it is.
Yeah, great match for sure. That's actually his fourth highest rated match on Cage Match.
But I don't hear anyone ever talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, this version of Wrestle 1, how many shows did they run?
They were kind of like a freak show circus.
They ran 2 shows. So didn't really have, I guess, that much buzz. What else was on that show? It was a pay-per-view.
Was it Goldberg versus Kojima?
So it was a tournament. Some of the matches that were in the tournament were Tenryu against Murakami, Giant Bernard against Bob Sapp, Kensuke against Ricky Choshu, Akiyama Shibata, and Great Muta against Akebono.
You say,
And then on the
if you're wondering why JoJo's chuckling at the thought of like in 2005 of Kensuke Sasaki taking on Ricky Choshu, there's a lot of reasons why.
Yeah. And then just before I put this one to bed, the opening match on the second show, the next night, which is in Yoyogi, a place that you and I have been together before. Opening match is Abdullah the Butcher and Giant Kamala against Dory Funk Jr. and Katsuhiko Nakajima.
It's amazing. that's probably Kensuke saying, "Hey, like, give my kid a opening comedy match with a bunch of old dudes."
Yeah,
he needs the experience for doing things like that. But continuing on, May 17th, 2009 against Kenta. October 23rd, 2011 against Suwama, and the Kenta Kobashi retirement match on May 11th, 2013, where he's teaming with Muto, Sasaki, and Kobashi against Shiozaki, Kenta, Maibach Taniguchi, and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. And then more recently, July 23rd against Kento Miyahara, and April 25th against Naomichi Marufuji. These are kind of like the matches I would urge people to go check out if you want to get a great overview of the entire career of Jun Akiyama.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, a long history of amazing matches, maybe more than anyone else that debuted when he did. I'll just mention too, I've said it already twice, that my favorite match of all time is that July 1998 Triple Crown match against Kobashi. I think if there's one match that sums up their relationship and the potential that Akiyama had to be, on top in Japan, it's that one. That one, I call that match the birth of sternness, because it's not, they're tag team partners at that time. It was actually before they had won either of their tag leagues, but the aggression that Akiyama shows in that match, and obviously the fire that Kobashi has, is unmatched. And then I'll throw one out that you didn't mention, WH. There was a DDT title match last year on that list. 8.59 Jun Akiyama against Kazusada Higuchi. And I'm going to ask you to start your DDT era Akiyama watch with that match.
All right. I listen, I like Kazusada Higuchi. I think he's a DDT wrestler that shouldn't be in DDT.
There you go.
There you go. Angering many a DDT listener that may or may not be listening to this particular show. But before we close out, I do want to talk about, one part of like Akiyama's appeal are his awesome entrance themes. Okay. His first entrance theme from 92 to 96, not so memorable, is this thing called US Final Battle. But from 96 to 2001 and briefly in 2006, Shadow Explosion. What a great theme. But even better, I don't know, not better.
Yeah, this might be contested.
This might be contested. Shadow Explosion is so awesome, but
yeah,
up there with being really good is sternness that he uses from 2001 to this day. And I get it. You know what, JoJo? I'm gonna say Shadow Explosion is more. I just love the way it opens.
Yeah, for sure. It's epic. It has the thing about the All Japan themes in that time, the melodies are so memorable, and Shadow Explosion is no exception. One of the cool things about his kind of DDT run is that he switches back and forth between the two. He's been using Shadow Explosion more frequently in DDT, but he does use both. So that's another reason to check him out in DDT.
Well, with that being said, I want to wrap this up. I want to thank you, JoJo. Thanks for coming on the show. I thought this has been a great conversation we've had, and just an excellent look at someone who's a favorite wrestler of both of us, and that's Jun Akiyama. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I remember, when you were throwing around this concept of the show, we had a conversation and we like went back and forth about some music you could use. And it's amazing that it took me this long to be on the show, but I'm really glad I did it. And I couldn't have thought of a better episode to jump in than to talk about Jun Akiyama.
I just wanted to because I always knew I was going to do a biography episode, miniseries within the series. And I always knew, the fifth person I'm going to talk about is after the Four Pillars is going to be Akiyama. And I thought, well, who should I talk to about that? Like, it has to be you, like it's either you, it was either going to be you, or it was going to be either like, is it like after you, if I couldn't have gotten you, it would have been either Alan Farrell or John Pollock. And I thought,
well, that's good company. So
that is very good company, but like you edge out both those guys because I know your love for Akiyama and knowledge of Akiyama is unmatched, as is evidenced by our discussion here today. Where can people find more of you? I know you don't really talk about wrestling that much these days on social media.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, they can find me on Twitter, JoJo_runs. That hasn't changed, but I'm not really super active. So I don't know I mean, if they want to find me, they can like look at my Wordle scores. That's pretty much that's all that's on my Twitter these days.
I've looked into this Wordle and I'm just like, I'm not getting sucked up into this.
Oh, come on. It's fun.
I'm not. It's fun. It's gonna last as long as fucking like Pokemon Go, did. Then I don't have the time. I got my Wordscape. I got on my phone that I like to play on my commute to work. I got my audiobooks and my podcasts I like to listen to like when I'm going to work. I don't want to put any more brain effort into this. It looks interesting, and I'm amazed at how many people I know are playing this game, but it's just like, no, I'm not getting sucked into Wordle. That being said, I'm WH Park, and you can find me at WH Park 9 on Twitter. I do talk a lot about wrestling still on there. It's died down a little just because like my own interest in wrestling is kind of has waned a little, but I'm hoping 2022 will be a year that it's reignited. We'll see. But I'll still be doing these podcasts with various guests and friends, and including JoJo coming back in the future for sure. And and then Post Perez, go listen to that. Go check out the t-shirts we have on sale at store.postwrestling.com. The one for this particular show, the Four Pillars t-shirt that is very popular and is worn by Pro Wrestling Torch's Rich Fan on a regular basis, it seems. And of course, the Post Perez t-shirt, you can find that as well. And most of the proceeds go to me. So there you go. I just being upfront about that. But Any final thoughts, JoJo, on Akiyama or in wrestling in general or anything?
No, I think if more wrestlers wrestled like Jun Akiyama, I think WH Park would be more interested in wrestling. So
if we had more Jun Akiyamas and less Ken Chans, wrestling would be way better than it is right now, in my opinion. But yes, that is true. But on behalf of JoJo, thanks for anyone who's listened. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I can't see why you wouldn't. And until next time, I will say goodbye.